Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. And most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what do I mean by that? Excuse me. I'm dealing with a head cold. I say that because I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice a week long form podcast, because I want to put the right individuals or the right information out there for the people who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. It's one of the many, many reasons why I proudly fly that American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. Excuse me. Sorry about that in the intro. I'm dealing with a slight head cold. It is what it is. And you know what? We don't do two takes. We don't edit. We just go for it, you guys, because that's the reality of business and life out there. Tracy St. Clair, YouTube, tuning in. Good morning to you, Tracy. Bill McIntyre, my man. Good morning. Corey Buchan. Good to see you. Happy hump day. He says, Stuart, the hobby trucker. Good morning to you. Thanks for tuning in. Danny Longoria. Good morning to you. Thank you for tuning in as well. It's a great week so far, you guys. I'm telling you, I know the holidays coming up. And a lot of people are not working right now. I've gotten so many auto offices with all of my sales outreach. But at the end of the day, there is still a lot of freight that is moving. We got a lot of stuff going on. Fortunately, right now, we delivered like 4 truckloads already this morning. We got a couple picking up today. It's turning out to be a really strong push to end the year, which is phenomenal to see, right? Like, again, this is 12 months in the making. We've, in year one in our brokerage has been awesome. Like, there's no other way to put it. I'm very, very proud of the progress that we've had. And, and again, it boils down to just not quitting, right? Not buying into any of the narratives that are out there and just keep showing up every single day and controlling what you can control. Flo, good morning to you. Devon McKinney, good to see you, man. Thomas Weirden says, good morning, coach. Don't truck it up today. That's the goal, Thomas. That is the goal, my man. Yeah, Wednesday today. And back when I started creating content, Weather the Storm Wednesday was the video of the day. And I would always talk about all the things that can possibly happen out there about how do you deal with certain situations and, and what can you do when things go wrong, right? Because it's easy to put out content about how great you are, right? Like, it's easy to put out content and say how you're a fucking motivational speaker and everything else. But what do you do when shit is seemingly going wrong? How do you handle situations, right? Like, fortunately, I got a lot of experience in this industry. I jokingly say I've only moved 3 truckloads. But going through a lot of those challenging times, that's what's preparing you. And, from my perspective, because I want everything to go right all the time, right? Just like everybody. I want trucks to show up on time. I don't want there to be any damages to product. But how you handle those situations, those are the great separators in business, especially in freight. And I'm only going to talk about freight because that's all I've ever done. All of my books of business have grown with my customers when things have gone wrong. And let me explain to you why. That's when I step up as a partner, because anybody can do this job when it's easy, right? Anybody can, when you're making money on loads and trucks are on time and everyone, you're high-fiving, you're fucking doing keg stands in the office and ping pong tournaments all day long, everyone's good. But how do you handle yourself when things happen? When you know that there's going to be an issue, when you know that there's going to be a late truck, how do you do? Do you run away from it? I've dealt with a lot of very important shipments out there, and there's delays, there's things that's happened. I just dealt with this a couple weeks ago with a customer of mine, right? Driver got loaded, supposed to have a 5 a.m. delivery, notified us an hour after shipment. I'm not getting there at 5 a.m. So what do you do in that situation? Chris, when I first started, I would have waited till the following morning. I would have waited till the following morning to let them know that the driver wasn't going to be there. But Chris, now I just got ahead of it right away. We called the receiver instantly and said, hey, our driver is not going to be there at 5 a.m. This is their ETA. They're going to drive to this city. They're going to shut down. They have to do their shutdown. This is when they can start driving again. And this is when they're going to arrive. Of course, they're not happy. I called my customer as well, and I let them know. Well, actually, excuse me, I called my customer first and let them know, and then we called the receiver. But I called my customer, and I told him that, right? I'm not going to wait. Bad news doesn't travel, doesn't get better, and I would rather get ahead of it. I truly would. I don't believe in withholding information because that's what's going to cost you business. All right. When you take your customer's ability to do their job away from there, mistakes are going to happen, things are going to happen, but how you handle those in those moments, those are the great separators in business, right? Because again, you learn and you move on. Like that's all you have to do. You have to learn and you have to change it. Because again, if you've messed up, if you've done what I used to do early on in my career and just not tell anybody until like 5 minutes before the delivery was supposed to happen, and then you concoct some major story like, oh, we didn't know, and you just get caught up in the lies. That's how I used to lose sleep. I can sleep better at night knowing that like I told everybody what was going on, and even if it's good, bad, or indifferent, I'm just going to let people know what's going on. So then there's no false sense of anything that's going to happen, right? Because like in the open deck world, because that's what I do, right? Like we specialize in open deck and heavy haul. A lot of these job site deliveries, crews come in for that stuff, right? Like it's not just a standard warehouse where people are there every single day. Like a lot of the time, the crews are only there for a specific amount of time, and a lot of it is it's like, hey, if that driver's running late, they can allocate that crew and put them on another job site or whatever it is. So you're not, I just think like you're helping them flow or help them out with their workflow a little bit more, right? Because delays are going to happen, things are going to happen, but how are you communicating them? Are you withholding that information, or are you just going to rip the Band-Aid off and get out there and let your customers know what's going on? Because that's my biggest piece of advice when it comes down to it, you guys, because it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before it's your truck that's delayed, before there's damages out there, before there's a missed appointment time or whatever that looks like. How you handle those situations is, in my opinion, what gets you more business. All right. Yeah, there's a ton of value in your truck showing up on time and delivering on time. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to discredit that or anything, but that's how you really separate yourself from your competition. Because at the end of the day, we're all similar on rates, right? It's not always about price. We're all similar on rates. We're all similar on a decent amount of things, but it's those little things, right? It's, are you going to actually handle shit when it happens, or are you going to let it sweep under the rug? Or if you know that you're not going to pick up a load today, again, like, because I dealt with this a couple of weeks ago, you guys, we failed on a load straight up. I'm not going to try and twist it and turn it any other way. I let my customer know 5.5 hours prior to them shutting down that we didn't have a truck and what happened. I explained to them what happened on it. Realistically, I should have reached out sooner, right? My gut told me what was going to happen, but I didn't listen to my gut in that moment. But again, it happened. I let them know. And then me and my business partner, we devised a plan on how we're going to handle those situations moving forward. And we're going to improve and we're going to move on. So learn from those moments. Those are the real separators, you guys. They truly are, in my opinion, because anybody can do anything when it's easy. When things are going right, anybody can be there. Everybody's great. But when things go wrong, when you're in that storm, when you're in any shitty situation, that's when you really find out who your real partners are, because most people run. Catherine Whitehouse, what is up? Good morning, Freight Fans. End of year game is strong. I love that. I agree. I truly feel like this is, I've already seen it, and I'm a little fired up today. If you guys don't listen to my friends, the Trucking for Millennials podcast, Aaron Dunn and Michael Clements, they're out of East Texas. They're very particular about where they're from. But I was just on there this morning and doing a little bit of an interview for their podcast as well. And, we were talking about preparing for 2024 and all of that stuff. And it got me really fired up. And I'm excited for 2024. I'm excited. Big things are going to happen. But let's break down some articles. How about that, you guys? I do have a couple of headlines, And as always, the links to all of these articles are going to be uploaded onto the Freight Coach YouTube channel, as well as the Coffee with the Freight Coach audio only replay, which is available on iTunes and Spotify almost immediately after the show. And this is going to be an article probably until there's a major shakeup in the industry. And I'm going to keep talking about them because I think that this is something that I get asked more than anything out there right now, outside of how do I find more customers. And that has to do with the market. Fleetowner.com put out this article. Will the freight economy warm up in spring? Low freight rates and high diesel prices made it challenging 2023 for trucking, but many experts are predicting rates and tonnage to bounce back in 2024, though the economy may not warm up until the spring or summer months. The bankruptcy of Yellow and then small carriers left the industry in record numbers, I said. And for those that remain, there is potential for a rebound, but they might have to be patient. Spot rates have been down 30 to 40% for a year and a half, said Rusty Rush of Rush, geez Louise, Enterprises. Contract rates have been beaten up. Interest rates are through the roof. Used truck prices are down. Those are four things that not in one of them is a killer, but all of them combined and caused a challenging landscape for the trucking industry. And then according to Avery Wise, the VP of research at FTR Transportation Intelligence, low rates have been caused by overcapacity, but as they hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. And it's not likely going to get weaker, but there is no expectation it will get stronger soon. And then Atlas Logistics, Matt Vanderline said, we see it getting better, not so much in the beginning, but I think those trends are going to start getting better as we get into the second quarter. Let me see. And then somebody said that there's still an overcapacity out there. And this was it Brian Corsier, excuse me. And then some forecasting that only 1 to 1.5% GDP growth over the next year, and it will feel like a recession. Analysts at ACT Research also expect the freight economy to improve. Class 8 orders of the next few months will be pivotal in setting the tone for for capacity and rates in 2024. I think rates are already set for 2024 from a contracting perspective. I know all the RFPs that have been filled out for 2024, and I don't think anybody is going to be going back on that anytime soon. And then CNBC survey of logistics executives said the freight recession is expected to continue through the first half of 2024. A third of them, more than half of the respondents said they expect rates to fall in the first quarter, which I would agree with, right? And here's the reality. I think next year in 2024, and I honestly thought this in 2023, I thought that this was what was going to happen, but it didn't necessarily turn out this way. So in a typical freight year, Q1 historically has always been low volume, low rates throughout the entirety of my career. That is, because again, like for the most part, there aren't a lot of people who are buying a bunch of shit in Q1. It's that holiday hangover approach. And then as the ground starts to thaw, that's when rates start to increase and that's when things start to change. And that's normally around, late March, early April. And that has a lot to do like with the produce season, right? So when produce season starts to kick off down in Florida and stuff in that time frame, that's when you start to see the freight year really start to hum. A third of them expect the rates to go up, and 17% expect them to remain stagnant. I don't agree with the fact that the third of them think that rates are going to increase. I don't like I've said out there, I truly think next year is going to be a steady rise in rates. I think that that's when you're going to start seeing the spot market start to increase. And I've said this before. I truly think that you're going to start seeing headlines about tender rejections starting to rise because I know based on the RFPs that I filled out that people went cheap on their rates, right? I know they did. So it's going to be interesting to see, right? Because these low rates that people are out there bidding, because a lot of people who work for a lot of large companies, they can bid cheap, and their whole bidding strategy is to go in low and then use it for while they can, and then they start rejecting the lows, and then they hope to get them and rebound with that volume out on the spot market. That is how a lot of people operate out there. And then also it goes on to say that people are optimistic about the second half of the year, with half saying they expect rates to rise. a third expecting a 10% rise, and then 17% saying freight rates could jump as high as 15%. I don't think 15% is happening. I could see maybe between 5 to 10% later this time next year, peak season. I could see that. I don't think it's going to raise as high as 15%. And then there's also inflation to deal with, which inflation is real no matter what anybody out there is saying. I don't know about you guys, but my bills are still fucking sky high due to my everyday expenses, i.e. food and everything else. But it's going to be interesting to see what the interest rates do, if they are going to, what's going to happen, because they held them firm again. And, some of the analysts that I pay attention to out there, it looks like, you never know. There's people who are going back and forth on if they're going to drop interest rates next year and kind of see. I don't know. I think that with 2024, and this is how the article ends, 2024 is an election year, which always brings uncertainty. And they say it's going to be an interesting year, and they're going to plan on being flexible and continue to pivot. And that's one thing to keep in mind, right? Like, politics plays a lot into this, right? And if you're have a sitting president who's going to look to get reelected, they're going to it's going to go one of two ways, right? Like, I truly feel like it's either going to go where they're going to try and fix everything, and they're going to lower interest rates, and they're going to try and get that false sense of security back in there, or they're going to continue to double down and just complete fucking dumpster fire our entire country for the next 12 months, because they know that they're probably not going to get reelected. So it's going to be interesting to see. These next 12 months, I think, are going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be some things that we may have never seen in our lifetime are going to happen here over these next 12 months. And it's going to definitely have an effect on the freight economy. I think what's going on right now in the Middle East, and especially with some of the shipping lines that are out there. And I'm actually having a guy come on tomorrow to talk more about the stuff that's going on in the Middle East and the shipping lines getting attacked and stuff. But if the U.S. gets involved in that, if the U.S. Navy gets involved in that, it's going to be really bad, really, really bad. And I think that is going to have a massive effect on our freight economy in 2024 if there isn't a military event that gets involved. So that article, fleetowner.com, about the freight market in 2024. And, with that being said, I think it's important to note that, and I know that I talk about this on this show, about controlling what you can control. And I think it's very important to stay informed about what's going on in the world, but it's also very important to disconnect from it as well, because it can consume you, right? Just like anytime you want to go on LinkedIn. And I know how this sounds as somebody who posts content and has a podcast, and you could say like, about being involved in the social media world. I really try and distance myself from that a lot, because it can get consuming, right? You can get consumed with the negativity. And I just think that you got to just really focus on controlling what you can control, right? Because anybody out there, like all of these articles that we're writing down, and no matter what, they don't care whether you're in business or not, right? They're not, they frankly could care less if somebody failed. They're out there putting out articles, and you can get consumed on one way or another, or you can look at it from an opportunities perspective. And that's what I'm going to do, right? Like, I feel like you got to control what you can control. I don't give a shit what some analyst who doesn't actually move freight, who just studies trends. And I'm not saying that information is wrong. I don't give a fuck what they say about 2024. All right. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to execute. I am going to win next year. All right. That is my mentality. That is how I'm attacking next year. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to continue to make my sales calls. I'm going to continue to control what I can control. I'm going to control my effort. Okay. And then mostly I'm going to control how much outside media that I actually consume. I'm going to stay informed, right? Like, I pay attention to major economic indicators, geopolitical events, world news. I pay attention to it, but only for a small amount of time. I do enough to inform myself, and then I back away, because you can get really consumed in that negativity loop. And I truly feel like that's honestly what it's designed for. And they are going to throw everything next year at it, with it being an election year, you guys. Either side of the aisle, it's going to just get ugly. And, again, do what you got to do, and just put your efforts forward, and you will see results, because a lot of people are going to get consumed by that. They're going to get consumed by that. They're going to fucking attach their identity to that. And that doesn't move the needle in your business. It doesn't. Next article we're going to break down, you guys, is from ttnews.com. And then it's truck tonnage falls 1.2% in November. Freight recession seen as easing heading into 2024. The ATA put this out there. I got to reach out to them. I'd like to have Chief Economist Bob Costello on my show. And he says we continue to see a choppy 2023 for truck tonnage. The index fell 1.2% out there on a sequential basis. And it seems like every freight improvements, it takes a step back the following month. Costello said, while year-over-year comparisons are improving, unfortunately, the freight market remains in a recession. Looking ahead, with retail inventories falling, we should see less of a headwind for retail freight, but I'm also not expecting a surge in freight and the levels in the coming months. And then in calculating the index out there, it's dominated by contracting. It's dominated by contracted freight as opposed to the spot market. The National Retail Federation, in a December 14th report, said that it expects holiday shopping seasons to meet expectations with a 3 to 4% increase out there, which total spending could reach a record between $957 and $966 billion in that time. And that's, there's an important note there, because there's always an emphasis. And if you pay attention, contracted freight and spot market freight, right? Contracted freight, set rates. Okay. It's a set rate. And a lot of times you fill out an RFP, and some of you might be listening to this right now and saying, oh, no shit. But there are people out there who do not know the difference between contracted freight and spot market freight. Contracts, set rates throughout the year, set volumes. Your customer is going to lock in that you're going to move 100 monthly shipments from Chicago to Cincinnati at $1 a mile. Hypothetical example. Don't tell me that I'm advocating for cheap freight. Hypothetical example. That accounts for like 85% of the freight that's moved out there, you guys, is under a contracted basis. And 15% of the freight out there is what's called spot market freight. That could be the customers who they don't have a guaranteed freight volume. It's completely dependent on the orders that come in, or there are contracted customers that have new lanes that from new business that they do not have a set rate on, right? So that's out there in the spot market. And that's naturally what you see a lot of people fighting over out there on the load boards is they're out there trying to find a spot market load. And then that's what drives those rates down based on capacity in the market. It's just your prototypical supply and demand that's going on out there. So when you're paying attention to a lot of this stuff, like with this article in particular, contracted rates dropped, for truck tonnage. And that's what they indicated out there. The spot market, from what I see, not everywhere. This is just completely with the customers that I'm working with, there's a lot of spot market opportunities that are happening right now. And why does that happen? Because people reject tenders. In my customers' instances, they reject their contracted loads, and then it goes out there into the spot market. And I've always wondered, when people report on this data, do they count that, right? Like when people talk about tender rejections, is that a load that was rejected 10 times and then it fell out into the spot market? I just, again, at the end of the day, you guys, data is extremely subjective, and you can perceive it in any other direction that's going on out there. But again, a lot of the opportunities that we start with are on the spot market. So you got to think, a lot of people are fighting for about 15% of that freight that's going on out there. But if you look at the, as Kevin Hill put on my podcast the other day, the $400 billion freight market that is out there for bid, and 15% of that, that's like $60 billion in spot market freight a year. So, again, I went to public school, so take that with a grain of salt. But that's a lot of opportunity that's out there, no matter how you want to look at it. That was just a quick article, you guys, and it was from ttnews.com. Truck tonnage falls 1.2% in November. And, again, you guys, it's all about right now, those opportunities like we were talking about. Jeff Dickinson, good morning. Merry Christmas. Yes, very much Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, 100%. I love it. I love it. I'll be going live tomorrow. Like I said, you guys, I got a shipping guy who's going to come on. You guys all know who he is. And then Friday, we got the Q&A day. But, holidays, you guys, with that coming up right now, right? Like today, in my opinion, is like any freight that moves from tomorrow probably through the first week of January, right? Like I truly don't feel like capacity is going to start to bleed back out into the market until Monday, January 8th. All right. So prepare yourselves as you're out there bidding on freight over this time. If you're out there still prospecting like I am, and those opportunities come to you, get that truck in hand, get that price locked in, then provide that option to your customer. Do not go cowboy out here and just fucking accept loads and think that you're going to be able to move them like you normally have. Capacity tightens up a lot around this time, and you're going to be paying for trucks. And that's literally like, I can't stress that enough, you guys. If you're getting out there and you're working with customers right now, today, in my opinion, is like the last day where you're going to see capacity at a normal level. And all of the loads that are moving today are to get drivers back home. And that's going to be it. And then tomorrow, load starting tomorrow, rates are going to go up, you guys. So be very selective. Stay on top of your rates with my friends over at Green Screens, you guys. They have the most accurate pricing that is out there. I use them for every single shipment that I am moving in my brokerage is one based off of Green Screens pricings, you guys, because they give you the most accurate rate data that is out there at your disposal. And especially if there's last minute changes about what's going on in the market right now, they're going to show that, you guys, because their data is real time. It gets out there. I can't stress that enough, you guys, because those opportunities. That's right. The bodacious cowboy, Jeff Dickinson, coming in hot. Oh, man, that's funny, Jeff. But yeah, you guys, just stay on top of that right now more than ever. Okay. Stay on top of that stuff because these opportunities are going to come your way. If you're out there working, like my outreach for these next couple of days is telling people about my holiday schedule and everything else. The only day I'm not working is Christmas Day and New Year's Day. All right. Because everybody's going to be shut down, but I'm going to be available during that time. But I'm going to be very precise about the loads that I will take on if those come available during this time frame, because you guys, you're going to need that truck in hand. You're going to need to position yourself to be able to execute. Most importantly, okay, do not put yourself in a bad situation and start off on the wrong foot with your customers during this time. But that, my friends, is going to be it for today. We only got to a couple of articles. I was going to break down the interview of the C.H. Robinson CEO out there, but I'm going to save that for a different time. As always, you guys, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. This is how we reach more people, though, you guys. Most importantly, this is how we help more and more people, is because if you guys see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.